Red meat. Red meat is one of the oldest and most nutritionally significant protein sources in human history, deriving its characteristic color from myoglobin, a protein that stores oxygen within muscle fibers. The more a muscle is used during an animal's life, the more myoglobin it contains, which explains why a well-worked shoulder cut delivers more intense flavor than a tenderloin that barely moves. Beef, lamb, pork, venison, bison, and goat all provide a complete spectrum of essential amino acids with digestibility rates consistently above 90%, making them among the most bioavailable protein sources available. Beyond protein, red meat delivers iron, zinc, vitamin B12, and leucine, the amino acid most directly responsible for triggering muscle protein synthesis, in concentrations difficult to match through plant foods alone. Historically, red meat carried profound cultural weight. In 18th and 19th century Britain, beefsteak clubs like the Sublime Society of Beefsteaks tied meat consumption to ideas of national strength and freedom, with royalty among their members. The nutritional case for red meat is genuine, but context matters. Excessive consumption, particularly of processed forms, has been consistently linked in epidemiological research to elevated risks of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. Leaner cuts, moderate portions, and avoiding frequent high-temperature cooking represent the most evidence-supported approach to incorporating it into a healthy diet. Oily fish. Oily fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, anchovies, trout, and related species, represent one of the most nutritionally complete whole food protein sources on the planet. What distinguishes them from white fish and land animals is the distribution of fat throughout their muscle tissue rather than concentrated in the liver. That fat is extraordinarily rich in long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, two compounds the human body cannot synthesize in sufficient quantities independently and must obtain through diet. The evidence connecting these omega-3s to cardiovascular health, reduced systemic inflammation, brain development, and eye health spans decades of substantial research. Structurally, fish muscle differs fundamentally from land animal muscle. Fish have significantly shorter muscle fibers and far less connective tissue collagen, around 3% compared to roughly 15% in beef, which is why fish is naturally tender, cooks rapidly, and requires no tenderizing. 100 grams of Atlantic salmon delivers approximately 20 to 22 grams of protein with a comprehensive essential amino acid profile, accompanied by vitamin D, B12, selenium, and iodine. Sardines eaten whole contribute additional calcium from their bones. Mercury accumulation is the primary concern, with larger long-lived species like tuna accumulating more through the food chain. Smaller oily fish like sardines, herring, and anchovies sit near the bottom of the marine food chain, keeping their mercury content minimal and making them among the most consistently recommendable protein sources available. White proteins. White proteins encompass the lean, mild-flavored flesh of white-fleshed fish, poultry, and certain other light-colored meats, united by their low-fat content, clean neutral flavor, and high protein efficiency. Chicken breast is the defining example. 100 grams of skinless chicken breast delivers approximately 31 grams of protein with only 3 to 4 grams of fat, making it the benchmark for anyone optimizing protein intake relative to caloric cost. The amino acid profile is complete and digestibility is excellent. Chicken thigh offers more fat and significantly more flavor while remaining a strong protein source. The cultural reach of poultry is vast. Butter chicken transformed leftover chicken into one of India's most recognized dishes. Peking duck has been celebrated in Chinese cuisine for centuries, and chicken forms the foundation of countless culinary traditions worldwide. White fish including cod, haddock, and tilapia are essentially pure protein and water with minimal fat and a neutral flavor that accepts seasoning readily. Cod in particular carries extraordinary historical weight. The salted and dried cod trade was one of the most consequential food commodities in Atlantic history, feeding European populations through winters and religious fasting, stocking explorers' ships, and contributing directly to political conflicts between England, Portugal, Iceland, and other nations across several centuries. Duck breast, with its higher myoglobin content, sits closer to red meat in character, while rabbit provides a very lean, mild flesh that historically served as a critical protein source for rural European populations. Eggs. Eggs are universally regarded as the gold standard of dietary protein, and that status is scientifically precise rather than merely conventional. The PDCAS score for whole egg is a perfect 1.0, the theoretical maximum, meaning the amino acid profile matches human requirements more closely than almost any other whole food, with every essential amino acid present in ideal proportions. When scientists first developed the concept of biological value in the early 20th century as a method for assessing protein quality, egg was assigned the score of 100 as the reference point against which all other proteins would be measured. A single large egg delivers 6 to 7 grams of protein split between the white and the yolk. Beyond protein, eggs supply vitamin D, B12, selenium, and choline, a nutrient critical for brain function and membrane integrity that most people do not consume in sufficient quantities. Humans have been eating eggs since organized chicken domestication in Southeast Asia around 1500 BCE, and in ancient Rome they were so embedded in daily food culture that meals routinely began with them. The yolk contains lecithin, a natural emulsifier that enables fat and water to bind together, the chemical foundation of mayonnaise, hollandaise, and countless emulsified sauces. Egg whites function entirely differently. Almost pure water and protein, they trap enormous quantities of air when whipped and set that structure under heat, which is the physical basis of meringues, soufflés, and aerated preparations across pastry cooking. Dairy. Dairy protein is a family of distinct proteins behaving differently within a single liquid, each with its own structure, digestion rate, and culinary application. Casein makes up approximately 80% of milk protein and digests slowly, forming a gel in the stomach and releasing amino acids gradually, the basis for its popularity as a pre-sleep supplement. Whey comprises the remaining 20% and is absorbed rapidly. Fresh whole milk contains 3 to 4% protein, but concentration during processing transforms it dramatically. Hard-aged cheeses like Parmesan can reach 30 grams of protein per 100 grams while becoming nearly lactose-free, as bacteria consume most of the lactose during fermentation and aging. The genetic mutation enabling adult humans to continue producing lactase, the enzyme that breaks down lactose, emerged only 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, coinciding with the rise of pastoralism, which means lactose tolerance is among the more recent significant evolutionary adaptations in human history. A pivotal cultural moment occurred in 1904 when Nobel Prize-winning biologist Elie Mechnikov publicly attributed the longevity of Bulgarian peasants to beneficial bacteria in fermented milk, triggering a global yogurt craze and eventually leading to the founding of companies like Danone, which transformed yogurt from a pharmacy product into an everyday grocery item. The ongoing scientific discussion around A1 versus A2 beta-casein, where some studies suggest A2 milk from Jersey cattle may be better tolerated by people with dairy sensitivity, remains genuinely interesting but currently inconclusive. Soy-based. Soy is the most thoroughly researched plant protein on the planet and occupies a unique position in nutrition science as one of the very few plant foods that qualifies as a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids in a balance comparable to animal foods. This gives soy a PDCAS score of 1.0, the same as eggs and milk, placing it in a category apart from virtually every other plant protein source. 100 grams of cooked soybeans delivers approximately 17 grams of protein. Tofu, produced by curdling soy milk and pressing it into blocks in a process directly analogous to cheesemaking, delivers 8 to 17 grams depending on firmness. Tempeh, a fermented whole soybean product with a denser, nuttier character, reaches 19 to 20 grams per 100 grams, making it one of the most protein-dense plant foods available. Tofu's history in China extends approximately 2,000 years, with Buddhist monasteries playing a central role in its proliferation as vegetarian communities adopted it as a primary protein source. The spread of Buddhism through Japan in the 6th and 7th centuries carried tofu production techniques with it, eventually producing Japan's own distinct tofu aesthetic, including silken varieties. Among plant milks, soy is the only one whose protein content genuinely approximates cow's milk at around 3 grams per 100 milliliters. Concerns about soy's isoflavones potentially disrupting hormone function have been extensively studied. Large populations with high soy intake show no evidence of hormonal disruption, and clinical research at normal dietary levels consistently finds no meaningful effects. Processed convenience proteins. Processed convenience proteins, protein bars, deli meats, cured sausages, ready-to-drink shakes, and packaged snack proteins are products engineered for convenience, shelf stability, and palatability, with nutritional quality varying enormously across the category. The concept of food processing predates modern industry by thousands of years. Drying, salting, and fermenting were used by ancient civilizations to create portable, shelf-stable proteins that sustained armies, sailors, and populations through harsh winters. The overwhelming majority of processed proteins in contemporary diets, however, are industrially produced items: hot dogs, packaged bologna, mass-market breakfast sausages, deli slices, chicken nuggets, typically manufactured from mechanically separated meat, offcuts, connective tissue, and fillers, combined with substantial sodium, nitrates, and phosphate binders to achieve the desired color, texture, and shelf life. These products appear most prominently in epidemiological studies linking processed meat consumption to elevated risks of cardiovascular disease, colorectal cancer, and metabolic conditions. Protein bars entered mainstream fitness culture during the 1980s and at their best deliver 20 to 30 grams of protein in a genuinely useful format. In practice, many commercial bars rely on high-sugar alcohols that cause digestive discomfort, cheap fillers, palm oil, and protein counts that are sometimes inflated through nitrogen spiking, adding inexpensive amino acids that register as protein on standard tests without providing equivalent nutritional value. The trade-off between convenience and food quality is the defining characteristic of this entire category. Legumes and pulses. Legumes and pulses, beans, lentils, chickpeas, and peas, are among the oldest and most ecologically significant protein sources in human agricultural history. Their unique capacity to fix atmospheric nitrogen through bacteria living in their root nodules means they actively replenish soil fertility rather than depleting it, making them foundational to sustainable farming systems across thousands of years of agricultural development. Early civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt relied on them as cheap, filling, storable staples, and in ancient Rome lentils were common enough to be called the meat of the poor. Nutritionally, pulses deliver 20 to 30% protein by weight alongside substantial fiber, folate, and iron, a combination that slows digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and supports healthy gut microbiota in ways that make them genuinely functional rather than merely adequate as protein sources. Most legumes are not complete proteins independently, being low in the amino acid methionine, but this limitation is easily resolved by combining them with grains, which is precisely why traditional pairings like rice and beans, or hummus with pitta, appear across so many distinct food cultures independently. Lentils may be the oldest cultivated legume, with archaeological evidence from the Fertile Crescent dating cultivation back over 10,000 years. Black beans form the protein foundation of much of Latin American cooking, most symbolically in Brazil's feijoada, a slow-cooked stew of black beans and pork cuts considered the national dish, with roots tracing to the blending of African, indigenous, and Portuguese food traditions during the colonial period. Nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds have been part of the human diet since the Stone Age, with archaeological evidence of consumption dating back 780,000 years and specialized nutting stones discovered at ancient sites indicating their deliberate and regular use. They represent the most calorie-dense natural protein packages in the plant kingdom, with protein content varying significantly across the category. Hemp seeds deliver approximately 31 grams of protein per 100 grams with an unusually complete amino acid profile for a plant source. Pumpkin seeds reach 19 to 24 grams, peanuts approximately 26 grams, almonds around 21 grams, and most tree nuts fall between 14 and 20 grams. These figures come alongside high fat and calorie content. 100 grams of almonds carries roughly 570 calories, which means using nuts as a primary protein source requires careful accounting of total energy intake. In practice, nuts and seeds function most effectively as a complementary protein source, contributing meaningfully to daily totals while simultaneously supplying healthy unsaturated fats, magnesium, zinc, selenium, vitamin E, and various polyphenols. One practically important modern finding is that the usable caloric energy from nuts can be approximately 30% lower than nutritional labels suggest, because the tough cellular walls of nuts are not fully broken down during digestion, allowing some fat and protein to pass through unabsorbed. This phenomenon may partly explain why regular nut consumers consistently show better cardiovascular outcomes and less weight gain than the raw calorie numbers would predict. Pseudo-cereals. Pseudo-cereals, quinoa, amaranth, and buckwheat, are plants that produce seeds consumed like grains but belong outside the grass family entirely, making them naturally gluten-free and generally higher in protein than conventional cereals. Quinoa and amaranth held sacred status in the Inca and Aztec empires respectively, with quinoa called the mother of all grains by the Incas and planted ceremonially using gold tools by rulers at the start of each season. Quinoa is one of the very few plant foods qualifying as a complete protein, delivering approximately 8 grams per cooked 185 gram serving with all 9 essential amino acids in reasonable proportions. Its distinctive texture comes from the outer germ separating during cooking to form a small visible spiral around the starchy interior, a characteristic immediately recognizable once noticed. Buckwheat cultivation originated in Southeast Asia before spreading through China, Korea, and Japan and eventually into medieval Europe. In Japan, buckwheat flour became the foundation for soba noodles, one of the most culturally refined noodle traditions in the country. In Eastern Europe, buckwheat groats cooked into kasha have served as an everyday staple for Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish populations for centuries. Buckwheat delivers around 13 grams of protein per 100 grams cooked. Amaranth is a particularly hardy crop, capable of growing in dry and difficult conditions that would fail other staple crops, a characteristic that makes it increasingly relevant to discussions of sustainable and climate-resilient agriculture for the future. Mycoprotein. Mycoprotein is categorically distinct from every other protein source in this guide because it comes from neither animals nor plants but from fungi, specifically a filamentous fungus called Fusarium venenatum discovered in a garden in Buckinghamshire, England. Its development originated in the 1960s when scientists, concerned about a predicted global protein shortage as population grew, were commissioned by British industrialist J. Arthur Rank to find a microorganism capable of converting simple starch into protein through fermentation. After screening over 3,000 soil samples collected from around the world, Fusarium venenatum emerged as the most promising candidate. The fungus grows in long thread-like structures that closely resemble tiny muscle fibers, and when harvested and processed these fibers form a chewy, fibrous structure that approximates the texture of animal meat more convincingly than most plant-based alternatives. Nutritionally, it is strong, high in complete protein, high in fiber, low in saturated fat, and entirely cholesterol-free. Production takes place in large industrial fermentation tanks fed glucose derived from cornstarch under carefully controlled conditions of temperature and acidity. The environmental footprint is substantially smaller than conventional meat production, requiring significantly less land and water while generating considerably lower greenhouse gas emissions. Mycoprotein is part of a broader expansion of interest in fungi as both food and functional ingredients, from edible medicinal mushrooms like lion's mane to precision fermentation platforms using engineered microbes to produce specific proteins at commercial scale.